Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Mac and Jack Show. I am Jamie Pags. I know you guys haven't seen me in a long time, but I am back, well, at least for today, and I am here with Hall of Fame boxing writer and overall just sports enthusiast, Jack Kirsch. How are you, Jack?
Hey, good, Pags. You've been all over the place. When the World Series ends, I hope you take a little bit of a break. You have to have a little bit of an off season as the ultimate Philly sports guy, the ultimate Philly sports fan, because sports go around the clock, Pags. When is your off season? When can you catch a little bit of a break?
There is a time in July when baseball has the All Star break, and they have it for like a week now, and that's when there's no sports going on other than that. That seems to be the only time. Realistically, this has been obviously a whirlwind in Philadelphia in terms of just everything that's been going on, and uh, this is probably the busiest that I have ever been with Philadelphia sports between going to you know World Series games and the biggest question being asked to me over the last 3 days was, what am I doing today? Am I going to do half and half? Am I going, and I just tell everybody the same thing is that playoffs always trumps regular season, and especially when you're in a championship.
The Eagles
It's
in
just
Houston, Pags. It's an easy decision, you being in Philly. Pags, let me be the devil for a moment, and I want to cut a deal with you. You have a chance to cut a deal with the devil today. If
okay.
I can guarantee you a Philadelphia Philly win under the following condition only, the Eagles lose in Houston to the Houston Texans tonight, but you can have the Philly win. Will you make that deal with the devil?
Well, just they win the series or they win in just one
No,
game.
they were up 3-2, but the Eagles have to lose tonight. Now, I know you're not going to do it the opposite way. You're not going to take the guaranteed Eagle win because you figure they're
Right.
probably winning anyway, even though it's not a certainty in Houston. And you might be willing to take your chance in the baseball game, but the baseball game is very much touch and go. Who's going to win?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I had to make a deal in that regards, in terms of, hey, you absolutely are going to get a win tonight, or and the Eagles lose, Phillies win, Eagles lose. You know, I may make that deal because one loss for the Eagles right now isn't going to be a big deal. You know what I mean?
Well, I
It's
could
just
see Jerry Jones sitting with you, trying to convince you, saying "good decision, Pags," and patting you on the back and
yeah,
walking
well,
away.
because that's
Last
because he's
night's
two
game.
games
Let,
back.
let's get right to last night's game. It's now 2-2. It's best 2 out of 3. Two things in baseball we hear a lot. We hear about home field advantage. I think that's overrated to a large extent. But this series, to see the enthusiasm of the Philly fans in game 3, it certainly wasn't overrated. But listen, the year that the Houston Astros lost to the Washington Nationals in 7 games in the World Series, they lost all 4 games at home. And they
Yep.
won all 3 games on the road. So teams have been known to come back on the road. The Phillies can lose tonight and still conceivably win the next 2 in Houston, but it makes it much, much harder. Game when you're 2 games apiece, Pags, in a game 5, how much of a must game is this for the Phillies tonight?
I think it's a lot more of a must game than anything else. I mean, it depends on how you look at this. Like, there are certain people that have the thought process that says that the Phillies are playing with house money. That they shouldn't even be here, and in the process of that, you should be happy with what you get. I don't. I'm not of that ilk. I want my cake. I want the icing. I want it all. You know what I mean? So I feel that it's really important because they're not going to. I think that there is been a home field advantage. I think last night it was not there. I think that last night was a very weird crowd. that we were unable to take advantage of the noise. Like in game three, it was the building shook so much it registered on the Richter scale at Penn State, Montgomery County, where it actually literally had, when Harper hit his home run and then when Bohm hit his home run, it registered at like a 2.3 on the Richter scale. That's that type of energy. You, the Astros felt it and they couldn't hit the ball. Now go the opposite way. Yesterday was very quiet, and I even as much as I tried, and I'm that guy who tries to get the crowd riled up. They just were not interested in being riled up. Just they were not. It was just a very odd crowd last night, and I think that being the case, you know, obviously they didn't get a hit last night, and there was, it's the second no hit ever in a World Series, and all of that is just blah 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 to me. You know what I mean? I don't think that really played as big of a part as it, as it's going to be made to feel. Like obviously, I think that because it was history and that it's only the second time that that's ever happened. Again, had they had one hit, would it made a difference? You know what I
Baby
mean?
history, it's very insignificant. I mean, combined no hitters are fun for the team getting it because it's a team effort. They all get together, they're happy. To me, it's never at, close to being as big an achievement as one individual getting a no hitter, going the whole distance. You're bringing in fresh arms. It's fun. It's fun to no hit the other team. The Astros had fun with it, but then they basically move on. Yesterday's game, I don't think it would have made a difference in the long run, even though you never know. There's always a small chance. But I understand you in the postseason, you manage a little differently. Nola in the fifth inning. He's your ace, isn't he? He only threw 67 pitches total. The bases are loaded, no outs. I mean, you go into your bullpen without any margin of error with the bases loaded, and the first guy gets hit with a pitch. I didn't like it. If Nola's your ace, you really have faith in him. You stick with him. Maybe he gives up a couple of runs. You have to think, but you're still in the game at that point. And you never know the mindset. If Houston didn't put a 5 spot up on the board that inning, let's say hypothetically, Pags, they had only gotten 2 runs, which is quite possible. We have no idea. Maybe Nola gets out of the inning altogether. Maybe. There's always that small chance. Or maybe he gives up 5 runs. Who knows? But let's say he gave up 2 runs for argument's sake. You're still in the game, and Houston's strategy would have been a little different going forward. Maybe the pitches thrown would have been different. The mindset would have been different. They wouldn't have been as relaxed as they were with a 5-run lead. Why take your ace out 67 pitches? He's supposed to be your number 1 starter.
Well, and not only that, I mean, he did get 2 outs, and they pulled him with 2 outs. You know what I mean? They got all of those runs with 2 outs. I thought it's I I'm not even sure. I mean, I don't. I didn't even see the line. I thought they pulled him a little early self, and
I
it's the
thought there were no
second
outs.
time
There were no
eh,
outs. I
there
think
was
he
no outs.
run.
All right, so he only
No
pitched
outs.
4 innings
But that's not
plus.
that's not the
But
point.
but it
67
is a little bit of
pitches.
the point, though. I think that again, I kind of agree with you. I think that they should have worked. He could have worked it out, and maybe. I mean, who knows? He could have pitched it. He could have pitched like a double play ball the next pitch, and 1 run scores, and then you get out of the inning. You know what I mean? The third out. I thought that it's the second time he's pulled him uh, quickly. And I guess that he's seeing something from Nola that is saying, okay, I got to get him out now. It's the same thing with Wheeler. Something about the way that he's pitching towards the latter part when he gets ready to pull him that says, I need to pull him because he's not necessarily tipping his pitches, but it's they're hanging up in the zone, and that's where they're going to have the most amount of damage. I I mean, when all is said and done here, the Astros have scored in 1 inning since they've been in Philadelphia. That's it. And I'm not as concerned as everybody else may be. I think that this, today, obviously the crowd's got to be a lot more, and Syndergaard going is a little bit more concerning to me in that regard because on a couple of starts this year, he's been a pitching machine. You know what I mean? Where it's just been, these guys have been be able to knock him all over the place. In the postseason, he's been much better. And I think that he's very well rested, so he should be able to have a lot of velocity and maybe even some movement on the ball. And the bullpen has been surprisingly really good for the Phillies. Even guys that don't normally pitch have been holding the Astros down pretty well. So I think that this bullpen game, I said initially that Nola had to win the game yesterday. He didn't win the game, and that's that the fans had to win the game today. And I kind of believe that that's still the case, that the fans have to be more like they were in game one. Because, like I said, I think it rocked Houston. That
Well,
they
game
played
three
up
of the
in Yankee
Phillies,
Stadium.
game one in Philly. But
Say
let me
again.
ask you this about the fans. You were at game three, and the fans were amazing. It was like a New Year's Eve build up, the way they were, so loud the whole time. But for game four last night, were they that way from the beginning, or were they just deflated with the poor inning, or what? Because they never seemed to get on track the same way. They were waiting for an excuse to get on track, the
The
fans, and they
fans, the fans, from the very beginning, from the very beginning. Hey, listen, I'm one of those guys. Like I can read a crowd very well, and before the game even started, there was just something a little funny about the crowd, and obviously they're Philly fans, but I believe and this may or may not be true, but I believe that Philly fans bought game three and bought game five. And game four was kind of left open. So you had a lot more of a corporate crowd than you typically would. And a corporate crowd doesn't have the same type of energy as the rabid fan who saved every penny that he had to go to these games. Now, imagine paying $2,000 to go to that game yesterday and getting no hit.
yeah, well, you always take a risk, but I think in the back of Philly fans' minds, and this is a little bit deflating, even though it wouldn't matter in the long run if the Phillies win the World Series. It doesn't really matter where they win it at. Any team prefers to win it at home, but it doesn't really matter, bottom line, at the end. But the Philly fans, I guess the realization set in yesterday, we're going to have to win this in Houston. And I
Right.
think the Houston fans and the team, they breathed a sigh of relief. Well, we're going back to Houston no matter what, and that's their comfort zone, even though they're absolutely beatable in Houston, and the Phillies beat them there, one of the two World Series games. But I think you're right. This is as close to a must game as you can get tonight, because to ask the Phillies to win one or two in Houston is extremely reasonable. But to ask them to win two straight, they're capable of doing it. And I know it's one game at a time, but it becomes a tough chore. You'll have to win a game six, which would absolutely be winnable. But then you have a game seven. It just would have a very bad feel to it if I'm the Phillies, to think of my chances of winning if I'm losing tonight's game.
I kind of agree. And it's, I mean, Houston has been there a number of times. I mean, they four out of the last six times. Short of Schwarber,
Seven.
they have not been able. Nobody else has been there. Nobody else has been in this situation short of Schwarber. And there is a certain level of learning that's got to occur here. Like you have to get yourself right and get you just a mindset right, because as you start to go to a game 7, when you start to get your backs up against the wall and the nerves, the human aspect of this starts to creep back in. You start to get nervous. You start to grip the bat a little bit more. I feel that there is a lot of that. You know, at the very beginning, before this happened, and I knew that we were going to go play against the Padres. I said that we were going to go in 7 games, and I know that I said the Phillies in 5, and I thought that, realistically, I thought that it was possible that we were going to win yesterday's game and lose today. That loss just came a day early, and that this is possibly going a 7 game series. And when you get to the 7th game, anything is possible, and it's going to be a lot harder, obviously, in Houston. That being said, it's going to be much more difficult to 2 games in Houston when they are getting primed for, you know, you know, a championship. You know what I mean? And they've only won one championship 5 years ago, and there's so much taint that comes with that championship in general that they want to be able to get over that hump. And
Well, Houston always has that one championship. They have some carryover guys from the team, so they can always, look at pride that they did win one championship out of the 4 times they went to the World Series in recent times. If the Phillies are to beat them this year, at least they got there. But for the Phillies, I don't I don't know whether the Philly fans realize the sense of urgency that virtually any team would have in this situation. It's so hard to get back to this position again. It's easy to say if you lose the World Series, oh, we're going to come back next year. We're going to make a couple of free agent signings. The experience will help. I'm not doubting that the Phillies could be a better team next year. I'm not doubting that for 1 second. The Phillies were 87 and 75. I'm not going to be surprised if the Phillies win 95, 97 games next year. Maybe let's say the Phillies win 100 games next year. I wouldn't be shocked. But the bottom line is the wheel starts all over again. Now you have to beat out the Braves, the
the
Mets,
Mets,
the
the
Dodgers,
Dodgers,
the Padres,
the
and,
Padres coming back in,
and,
and
and you could be much better than them in the regular season, like they were better than the Phillies this
right.
year. And look what happens. They could do next year to the Phillies what the Phillies have done to them this year, conceivably. And then the fan base becomes more frustrated. Take it from a Yankee fan here. Every year we get bumped in the playoffs. We've been excellent as far as getting to the playoffs each year, the Yankee teams. Every year, we won the Final Four this year, and people are looking at it as a failure. There's complete frustration. In other words, you have to win the World Series once in a while. If you win it once every 5 years, okay, that keeps people at arm's distance. And the Phillies, they last won it in 2008. And you know, and I don't think the Philly fan base has become that restless. But if you don't win the World Series this year, the fan base is going to be pretty restless in the off season. Well, what addition are we going to make? The Philly fan base is going to want a major free agent signing to
Yeah,
come
I,
back
I don't,
next
I
year.
don't know that that is as necessary this year. I think that Philadelphia, again, we watched this team. Me personally watched this team very closely, up close and personal, going to these games. And I went to literally 78 games this year for the Phillies. That's not including the playoffs.
Wow.
And we watched this team go up and down. And there was a point in time where we were going to make the playoffs. When we went, obviously, we talked about the Joe Girardi situation where we're 22 and 27 at one point, and all of a sudden getting rid of Joe Girardi, and we talked about it at length on this show. That getting rid of him, there was a collective sigh of relief. And since then, they were one of the better teams in baseball in terms of winning games. Then you put in a full crowd, a full capacity crowd out there. And it literally willed this team to win some of these. If they don't win the World Series, I don't know that it's as demoralizing of a loss year. Now, go again. Now, if fast forward, we're in the same exact situation next year, I would agree with what your thoughts is. I think that obviously the Philadelphia fan wants the Phillies to win. If they lose this, I think that the fan is going to be really excited more for next year than they are going to be like, well, we didn't win it, and that's just makes me angry. I mean, interestingly enough, and there has been I'm not going to say a good amount, but there has been some Yankee fans donning Phillies gear in the stadium. They're wearing their Yankees hat and a Phillies jersey and going and rooting for the Phillies over top of, to try to beat the Astros, going with the thought process, the enemy of the enemy is my friend. And that, there has been, who knows? I mean, from what I was told last night, MLB held 15,000 tickets and sold them privately. Now, again, I don't have that type of clearance to know if that's 100% true or not, but it does make some sense to me in terms of the way that the crowd responds in comparison to game 3 and what I expect to see from tonight.
You
I
think it was a
expect
corporate crowd? Like even when the Yankees played the Mets in the World Series in the year 2000, it wasn't the competitive crowd you'd think it would be with Met and Yankee fans. It was so many corporate seats was sold. There was that certain indifference. I mean, did the why are the seats sold to the corporations? I don't get it. Unless the corporations are major sponsors during the year and they're pouring in an enormous amount of money into the teams, then I can understand it. But I know when I was young as a fan, I would go to the box office and I would buy World Series seats. The 1977 World Series, Yankees and Dodgers. I went to all 3 World Series games. I was there when Reggie hit the 3 homers. I bought my darn tickets. Okay.
well, and I listen. The tickets in Philadelphia have been ridiculous in terms of pricing. You know what I mean? And the people have been paying for it. I think that MLB did have to give out, like sold to all the other teams. I think that's what happens, that all the other teams get access to some of these tickets, similar to the Super Bowl, that they have to offer it out to anybody else, then they can decide whether they want to actually go or not. There were a lot more Astros fans yesterday than I had seen in game 1 even. So there's an expectation that I thought that maybe not only was it a corporate crowd, but there were a lot of MLB people there, like in the seats wearing like MLB. I can only assume they were MLB executives, where they're wearing like MLB jackets and like the blank World Series jackets, where they're just, hey, this is a World Series that somebody's giving it out. So there was a good amount of that crowd, and then I think that the pricing, like I said, if you're a Philadelphia fan, you wanted to have game 3 and game 5, and you weren't as excited about game 4 because you had known that game 4 were going to be anything
No,
other
the
than
tickets are sold out way in advance. No one waited till after game 3 as far as getting tickets. But game
oh, well,
5
right, but
it's always appealing because you have this hope if the Phillies up 3-1, you want to be there for a clincher if you can. You're not going to get that in game 3. But looking ahead tonight, okay, Justin Verlander going for the Phillies against Noah Syndergaard. And like you said, Noah Syndergaard's a bit of a wild card. Which Noah Syndergaard's going to show up? Is it going to be the flamethrower from the New York Mets, a bygone time, who actually pitched in the 2015 World Series that the Mets lost to the Kansas City Royals? And then Noah Syndergaard's a pitcher with no fear. He's going to bring it, but he could be a bit erratic. If the good Noah Syndergaard shows up, he's going to be very effective. But maybe the question's more which Justin Verlander is going to show up. I know it's crazy. Justin Verlander, future Hall of Famer, he's going to win the Cy Young Award this year. The best pitcher in baseball this year, you could say. But Justin Verlander's been horrendous in World Series. He's like, his last 8 starts, he's winless. His ERA is over 6. He's been terrible. And Justin Verlander's legacy is at stake to a degree tonight. Because if Houston should lose tonight and he pitches poorly, and then Houston loses the series, that's going to become a part of Justin Verlander's history. He would have let Houston down twice in this series, and he's been terrible in the postseason. Last year, a couple of years ago with the Dodgers, at least Clayton Kershaw, who had a reputation of not being as good in the postseason as he was during the regular season, he vindicated himself to an extent. He won a couple of World Series games, pitched well. Dodgers won the World Series. He kind of got the monkey off his back in regard to that. And Justin Verlander, this is it for him. Bad game. He starts getting a rep with the postseason. Just the idea we're talking about it now, he's got to extinguish what we're talking about. And if he doesn't do it tonight, he better hope the Astros at least win the series. Because if he pitches poorly and they lose the series, he might not be able to ever live this down completely.
I kind of agree. I think that, and I'll be honest, I think that there's, again, this is where the human element starts to come back into play. And as much as he's been an amazing pitcher throughout his entire career, I think that when on that biggest stage, that some people just can't handle that type of pressure. And you're right. I think that that might be part of his storyline. That it's, and even the same way I could go and say the same thing about Peyton Manning. That Peyton Manning, like it's the one person I could really kind of put in the same category. Now I know Peyton Manning won a couple of Super Bowls, but if you look back at those Super Bowls, they were more run by his defense rather than him being the MVP of that game. And even going back to his college days when it came to bowl games, he was not very good. And I equate that name as Verlander. He's been such, a Hall of Fame pitcher throughout all his career. And when it comes to the big age, he seems a little small. Now I know he didn't get tagged for the loss, in that game in Houston, and neither did Nola. But like I said, his record speaks for itself. He's 0 for 6 with close to a 6.5 ERA, and that tells me that's no longer just a blip. That is a trend. And the fact that he's going to be in there tonight gives me a lot more hope. That because I think that he could have like a good inning, and then he starts to get beat up.
Well, even the
And
mindset of using pitches, I was listening to an analyst before, the show on TV, saying that Verlander, they're hopeful he could give them 5 good innings tonight. Then Houston turns it over to their strong bullpen. This is an ace. This is arguably, certainly one of the great pitchers of this era, without a question. And you're talking about you hope he could give you 5 innings. He's going to be winning the Cy Young Award, meaning he's still at the top of his game. Forget Verlander's age 39. Forget that for a moment.
That's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
Based on his performance, he's at his peak right now. He's as good as he ever was based on his performance this year. And you're hoping he can give you 5 innings. I mean, what's this game gotten to? In the past, you'd have a guy like a Sandy Koufax. Anything short of a complete game, you would, be uptight about. You'd expect him to go to full 9. And
Isn't the one thing that we've learned over, like even in these playoffs and probably over the last 2 to 3 years, that like 6 innings is the new 9. You don't pitch 9 innings. I mean, how do you? First off, let's go back. How would you ever anytime before the last 10 years, we'll say, because that started to change maybe even in the last 7, that you'd pull a pitcher out while having a no hitter. Yeah, you would be defied anytime because he didn't let up a hit. The moment he least lets up a hit, you pull him out. But if he's going and he's pitching a no hitter, you got to leave him in there because you don't talk about it. You don't say anything. People are superstitious in a lot of different ways. And you would have that happen. And now you pull him out after 6 innings, and that's the new
Well, they
norm.
have a pitch count, it's like picked out of a hat. And we've all been spoiled to follow it. It's 100 pitches. It's like pulled out of a hat. For some reason, it's this magical number. And
Right.
it used to be where you would trust your catcher. You would talk to him, how's the pitcher looking, especially a veteran catcher who's, like take like a Yadier Molina, Jason Varitek, those type of catchers, okay? Those guys are like managers on the field. Those guys are like pitching coaches on the field. You could trust what they say about the pitcher. You also have the radar gun there, which will let you know the pitcher's velocity. Is he losing a couple of miles per hour off his fastball? I can understand going with that to see how fatigued he is. And I can also understand if it's a certain arm, you don't want him to throw maybe too many pitches, early in the season. I can understand that. But especially getting to this time of the year, and the managers are still following a pitch count in the playoffs in the World Series. I don't just get it. Let me tell you, we talked about Justin Verlander. In my opinion, of all the players and managers out there, and we could talk about how much this means to Verlander. We could talk about how much this could mean to the Dodger manager, Dusty Baker, because if Houston wins, that this could be the difference between him becoming a Hall of Famer and not becoming a Hall of Famer, because he had an excellent career as a player, Dusty Baker. Not quite a Hall of Fame career, but a very good career. And he's had an excellent career as a manager, but he's yet to win a World Series as a manager. He wins this, you combine his body of work. I think it makes Dusty Baker worthy of going into the Hall of Fame, at some point. I really do if Houston wins. But the person I think this means the most to, the one single individual, is Bryce Harper. Like we mentioned a while ago, we don't know how close the Phillies could come again. They might very well come back next year and win the World Series regardless of what happens now. But Bryce Harper was with the Nationals all the years. And the year he left the Phillies, the Nationals win the World Series. No matter what Bryce Harper says, if he knew how that was going to play out, he would have delayed at least 1 year going to the Phillies. He would have stayed around the extra year, to be a champion with the Nationals, because he deserved to celebrate, because he put in enough great years in Washington where he deserved to be a part of it. Somewhat like Don Mattingly did with the Yankees. He retired, then they win the World Series after. Tiki Barber with the New York Giants retires, then they win the World Series. These guys deserve to be part of the celebration, regardless of what you think of their personalities. That's not the issue here. It's what they gave you on the field, okay, before that. And so Bryce Harper's a Philly. Phillies win the World Series. That makes it worth it. That wipes the slate completely clean what the Nationals did. He's a champion in his own right. He, by all accounts, he looks like the leader of this team. We don't know for sure what's going on in the locker room. We might find out later that Bryce Harper's a prima donna for all we know. We have no idea.
That's come out that he is the leader in this team, and him and Schwarber have been fairly, forthright about when they interviewed Schwarber last night. He's the first question they ask him is, "How do you feel like being on the wrong side of history?" And he's like, and he gave like this half, smart ass remark saying, "It's already over. I don't care." So I'm on the wrong side of history, and we're gonna, the game's over.
Yesterday's so-called yesterday's combined no-hitter to me is more of a footnote than anything else. It's
I
just
agree. I
that
agree. The
it's
fact that they didn't hit,
nonsense.
had they got one hit, would it have made a difference? Oh, they got
I'm
one
gonna tell
hit.
you
Oh, blah
something.
blah.
If I'm the Phillies, I'm hoping Houston is celebrating this. I really am. Anything that could be a distraction. If they're thinking about this, oh, we got the no hitter, and they're coming to the ballparks, happy, not really concentrating as much as they should on the game. It winds up helping the Phillies. This isn't Don Larson's perfect game. Perhaps if it was one pitcher who went the full 9 innings, yes, we
Whole
will
different.
celebrate that pitcher.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And that's what I felt. That's what I felt. I'm like the fact that they got no hit. People are telling me oh, what a terrible game. I'm like, yeah, it happens. You know what I mean? We had 7 runs the night before because the guy he was tipping his pitches, and everybody said that they saw it. Like anybody who knew anything about baseball saw that he was up here and down here, and the difference between the two pitches was amazing, and they were able to rock him because of it. That's whatever, you know what I mean? But Houston has got 4 great pitchers. That was what got them there. That's what made this all work. Justin Verlander was one of them. And now he's going up again tonight, where we were able to get to him, that once he gets to a certain point in his pitches, that he's doing well. But to circle back real quickly on Dusty Baker, I think that he is a Hall of Fame guy, whether or not he wins this or not. And I
I think
again,
so.
taking the whole body of work. It's like he's managed this team for a couple of years now. I know he has not won it. And I know that would be the
He's
feather
done an
in the cap.
outstanding job, regardless of whether they win it or not. He's done an outstanding job. He took over a terrible situation. He took over a very good team, but a team mired in controversy with the sign stealing scandal. And Houston was a very unpleasant place to be in the beginning because
Right.
everywhere they would go, the fans would get on them. And it just wasn't a happy place, to play baseball, especially the carryover guys. The guys who weren't there before, could deal with it better. But Dusty Baker really did a good job stabilizing things.
I agree, and I don't think it matters whether they win this World Series or not. I think that would just be the feather in the cap of a Hall of Fame career,
I
and
think it
obviously would
matters.
probably put it over the top. But if you have any question marks about it, me personally, yeah, we talk about Hall of Fame a lot in this show. And where we talk about Russell Wilson and how he's a Hall of Fame guy, and I disagree. Where I look at Dusty Baker and I vehemently agree, he is a Hall of Famer. I think he's been
Certain guys need the crowning achievement to put them over the top. A case in point would be Buck Showalter, the Met manager. In the American League, he was a 3-time manager of the year. Okay. And he's been a good manager wherever he's been, but they haven't gotten it done. He's never been to a World Series, let alone winning one. Okay.
right.
And he needs that World Series win. If the Mets are, for argument's sake, won the World Series this year with Showalter as the manager, I think that would get Buck Showalter into the Hall of Fame, but they didn't. So you look at Buck Showalter's credentials and you'll say, yeah, he was a very good manager, but he never quite got the ultimate step. Look, the Phillies had a manager. I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame. I've got to check. I could be wrong. I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame. Gene Mauch, okay? The famous Gene Mauch.
I know
He
who you're
was,
talking about.
he's best. Yeah, he came so close. The Phillies had a 6-game lead tonight with 10 games to play in 1964, and they blew that 6-game lead with 10 to play. He panicked. He pitched Jim Bunning and Chris Shaw, his 2 main pitchers, on 2 days rest, trying to lock it up. And then with the Angels, he was 1 strike away from going to the World Series with a 3-1 lead. And they let that get away, and he never got to the World Series. I don't think and Tim McCarver swore by Gene Mauch.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's not in the Hall of Fame.
And listen, and Gene Mauch was Tim McCarver's manager. Tim McCarver, very knowledgeable baseball guy, lead analyst for a ton of years. Yet, Gene Mach didn't quite get there. One World Series victory winning a World Series would have gotten Gene Mach there. So that's what I'm basically saying about Buck Showalter. But with Dusty Baker, he does have the combination manager player. As a manager in itself, he's not quite Hall of Fame worthy yet. It's not like Joe Torre, who managed the Yankees to a few World Series, victories. And Joe Torre was an outstanding player. He was kind of a little bit in the same boat as Dusty Baker as a player, but Torre has the rings. Dusty Baker, I think, needs one. But for Bryce Harper, he's the guy, I think, who really needs it the most. He's the star of the show. He's the most charismatic guy out there, the best single ball player out there. And he's the one with the biggest legacy at stake, I think, Bryce Harper. Because when Bryce Harper eventually retires, and you look back on his career, believe me, it's going to bother him if he was never on a World Series win. If he could just get one, fine. Listen, Hank Aaron had one in his whole career. Willie Mays had one in his whole career. But imagine neither Mays or Aaron had that one World Series. It would be mentioned, I think, from time to time. And they don't like that little stigma.
Well, and I understand that, but this series isn't going to be the 100% defining moment for Harper. I think that it's going to be listed in the moments, but ultimately it's not he's got still a lot long of a career left here. He's 31. He's got 9 or 8 more years left as a Philly even. I believe that
He signed a
this
13-year deal.
right. So that's what I'm saying. He think this is his 5th year in. I mean, it feels like it's been 5 years.
Time went quick on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, especially because we had COVID. That COVID year gets lost in the mix, and you kind of forget that even happened. But realistically, my thought is that he is not, and this isn't his end all be all. If he loses this World Series, is that it? He's never going back to a World Series. No, he's still going to be on this team. He's still going to be a very integral part of this team. This team's base is actually very solid, and that we start to get some of the pitching that is going to be coming up and that we are looking forward to, that was in AA and AAA this year, that's going to really start to help solidify and fill in some of that rotation, similar to the way that Ed Wade, who is now back with the Phillies again, built the Astros. Because that's what he did. He built the Astros to get to this point, and he built a system so strongly that it's still bearing fruit. Their farm system isn't as strong now, because that's the one thing Ed Wade was great at. He was great at building the foundation. Once he came back here, that's what he did again. He started to build the foundation. He's very good at those players that you trade for. We're going to trade this guy, and we're going to get like a AA player, and he's listed as maybe 108th on the list. He's not in that top 100, but he knows all the analytics and the specifics of that player, and he brings him in, and then the coaching actually helps bring them along properly. I think that there's been a lot of that, and we're going to start seeing some of the fruits of that moving forward. Does that help us now? Absolutely. And right now, the game at hand is Game 5 of the World Series, and it's the last game being played in Philadelphia in baseball this year, and it's a very important one. And it's something that we have to come out and support, show, and play like there is no tomorrow, because theoretically, like I said, if we had to go win 2 in Houston, it could be done. Absolutely. But it'd be a much harder way of going.
Now, let me ask you the mood of the Philly sports fan, because you live in the city. I can't gauge the move. There's a big NFL game tonight. Well, I shouldn't say big, but for the Eagles, it's big. They're 7-0. They're unbeaten here. They're playing at Houston against the Houston Texans. It's a game they were expected to win. It would be, I don't want to say a very bad loss. You lose to Houston, but this is as close to a gimme as you're going to have. There are no gimmies in the NFL. I understand that Houston could conceivably upset the Eagles, especially if the Eagles are just napping a little bit. This could be considered a bit of a trap game. But the Eagles should win if they're in form. But the Philly sports fan who is really into the Eagles this year, the Eagles have created a tremendous buzz in the city. What game are they going to be more emotionally invested in? Because this isn't a game 7 the Phillies are playing with Houston. No matter who wins, the other team could still come back and win 2 in a row. How is the Philly sports fan divided? The one that's not at the Philly game tonight, what are they doing TV-wise? I mean, if they have Prime, assuming they have Prime and they can get the game, that's shown. Did they watch the Eagle game, the Philly game, or did they scan back and forth between the 2 games? Which are they putting a little more emotional emphasis on tonight, just for tonight?
That's such a difficult question. I mean, the fact that I have been asked the same question, where am I going? Where am I going? Where? And I thought that, well, but no, stop. I want you, you gotta let me finish here. All right. So I have tickets to both. I was supposed to be in Houston right now for this game. And me personally, playoffs always trumps regular season, always. And the other part of that is that the Eagles, the Eagles being kind of helps here. You know what I mean? However, I feel that the Philadelphia fan is going to be switching back and forth. And that because ultimately, Philadelphia is a football town first and foremost. And the Eagles, if you were to put the Eagles winning the Super Bowl or the Phillies winning the World Series on the plates in front of you, and you could choose the red pill or the blue pill or the green pill, the red pill or the green pill, everybody's going to choose the green pill. At least 7 out of 10 people are going to choose the green pill over the red pill.
What about the 76ers? If you have that option thrown in there, an NBA title, a celebration.
Phillies would be over the Sixers. Yeah, you throw I think it would go Super Bowl, World Series, NBA championship, Stanley Cup. And in the which is the shame part about this is
how charismatic the players are too. If you had Dr. J, okay, guys like that, Daryl Dawkins, the whole bit, like Moses Malone, a throwback. All of a sudden, I think those guys become the most popular team because those are like such charismatic players that the fans love them. They love a Dr. J dunk. Okay, what did they get more of a thrill out of? A Bryce Harper home run, a Dr. J monster dunk over a legendary center like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They would go crazy if Dr. J slayed the monster down the middle and Dr. J slam dunking it in Michael Jordan's face. They would go crazy about that.
So I can only compare it this way. Like I said, when Harper hit his home run the other night, it registered on the Richter scale. It was like a 2.3 on the Richter scale. Well, it had to have been, I guess, as the crow flies, about 15 to 20 miles away. Even the most iconic play that Doc did was going around Magic Johnson and Kareem and going underneath the backboard and doing that layup. It's where he almost like floated in the air to do that. That is only, I mean, everybody's going to be in awe and everybody is going to be excited about it. But ultimately, the home run registered on the Richter scale. You know what I mean? Now, throw in that, make it a Jalen Hurts throw to, and AJ Brown for a touchdown in the Super Bowl, and I bet you that two on the Richter scale turns into like a 4. Because I think that you put all of them together. I think that Doc dunking and posterizing Kareem or Magic Johnson or Larry Bird or any of that still would be third on the
Well,
list.
talk about tonight's game, okay, against Houston and AJ Brown. Coming over from Tennessee, he became the lead receiver automatically, and the type of money they were paying him, it was to be expected. But they have another terrific wide receiver who is expected to take over and be the lead receiver for the Eagle franchise for years to come. And he's been delegated to basically the supporting cast. How's that going to go long run, with Devontae Smith?
Winning solves all problems right now. And I think that as long as they're winning, you're not going to have those issues. I think that it's only going to work in his favor because when AJ Brown is being covered, and there are times when he is covered, Devonta Smith steps up. You know, but it's been their show. It's been
Wait, wait, wait,
AJ
wait, wait,
Brown
wait.
or Devonta Smith.
Jalen Brown has by far been the lead guy, from what I
Oh,
could see.
Jalen Hurts, correct.
Okay, and yeah, AJ Brown. But the thing is, in Miami, the two receivers, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill coming to the Dolphins was considered the elite guy. All of a sudden, he became the number one receiver, but him and Jalen Waddle are basically splitting the duties. Maybe Tyreek Hill is marginally targeted a little more, okay, or looked at as the lead receiver a little more, but it's considered a duo. The Eagles, it's not quite that. It's like the A.J. Brown show a little more. Now, could it get to the point where he's considered a prima donna, or is he a prima donna who has to have the ball more?
It's hard to really be able to say that after he had like of course on performance where I mean it's well known that Hertz and Brown are best friends. When you're playing with your best friend always seems to be in the right place at the right time. When it's not working that way, he's got another guy who's able to just make sure he's open all the time. I don't think it's as big a deal as you're making it out to be. You're trying to make something out of nothing. And again, winning is what solves all those
No,
issues. If
I'm not accusing anything. I'm not calling him as such. I'm just looking around the league at players' attitudes, okay? Where we have something like that here in New York, and I'm not putting Elijah Moore in AJ Brown's class. Maybe someday he'll get there, but that would be a little bit of a stretch right now. But Elijah Moore is considered to be an outstanding talent, and going into the season, a lot of people thought he would be the Jets' number one receiver. But for whatever reason, he's turned into rotation receiver. And then he demanded a trade, was asked to stay home for a day. And despite that, the Jets didn't trade him by the deadline. They made it clear they weren't, because I think they recognized the guy really is a real talent. And we don't want to trade him because what we're going to get in return, it's not going to be equal value. We'll work it out over time. But you have a league of basic prima donna receivers if it's an elite guy. And the only time it's not is if you have maybe another elite receiver with him, just one other guy, then they could take a back seat to him to a degree. Okay, to a degree. But but with the Eagles, I mean, in general, what did you feel about any moves or non-moves before the trade deadline?
Well, obviously they shored up their defensive line by grabbing the guy from Chicago. I thought that
Yeah,
was
Jackson Smith. Yeah.
yeah, and I thought that was a great for the fourth round. I think that they were looking for running back help. They didn't pull the trigger because they didn't want to give up what the Saints were looking for, or even I think Cleveland said, "Yeah, we'll give them to you for 2 first round picks," and they're like, "Yeah, whatever." They just dismissed that pretty quickly. Then they're saying, "Well, if they're going to consider giving up 2 first round picks, let's go after somebody that we'd want." And then I think when you start looking at Kamara, you start looking at, well, that's a rental, right? Do you want to
Well,
chase 2 first round picks for a rental? Because who knows what his life is going to be like after football season. Once we get into the off season, he's going to have some real issues that he's got to deal with. And he's obviously it's possible he may not come back to football. And do we want to invest that type of kitty, or that type of
why has
dowry,
it
so to speak?
taking so long? That's what I don't understand. If there's video, with what happened in Las
Oh,
Vegas,
they postponed it all till after the season.
but
That's what's
why? I don't get
going.
it. I mean,
That was that. I guess that was done in accordance with the NFL and stuff like that. They said, okay, it's either going to happen or it's not going to happen before the season. They said it's not going to happen until after the season. So this is just normal court stuff that the courts are moving slow all across the country, and that it's like, okay, well, we'll deal with it after the season, and they just gave a continuance, I guess, till the season is over.
okay, you mentioned the New Orleans Saints. The Eagles get the New Orleans Saints #1 draft choice in this year's draft coming up. Is that correct? They
Correct.
have the Saints draft choice, and we don't know how high a draft choice it'll be. Maybe the Saints will put it together to an extent. They'll be 8 and 9 on the year. Maybe it's going to be a mid-round pick. Maybe it's going to be a very low pick. But before the trade deadline, that looked like a very appealing pick for maybe the Denver Broncos, okay? And I'm talking about Bradley Chubb, who went to the Miami Dolphins. It's the type of deal the Eagles could have said, okay, we'll give you that pick from New Orleans and you give us Bradley Chubb. And as long as you could fit Chubb into the cap, that's a no lose for the Eagles, because even if that draft choice you trade away gets to be a great player, you're getting a great player in Bradley Chubb. Imagine what he does to that for the Eagle defense. You're
Uh,
getting a star player. You can't lose on that deal unless your player gets injured, but anyone could get injured at any time. You can't take that fact into consideration.
well, becomes more of the you're unable to do that for the cap reasons. I think it had more to do with the cap. And when you get to the day of, I think within 24 hours of the deadline, you're not allowed to have teams eat the cap money to be able to do that. Like they were able to do that with the trade with Chicago, where Chicago is eating most of the cap hit from that.
Yeah.
But once you get within 24 hours, you're not allowed to do that. There's a rule in the trades that states that by the NFL. So that being the case, they weren't. I think it became a cap situation. And again, it's a matter of whether you have the fourth or the fifth or the sixth pick in the draft. How do you give that up right now?
But,
You're
but tags. But think of what certain teams have done trading away the draft capital, like the 49ers with Christian McCaffrey. Next year, they're giving away a #2, #3, #4. That's the heart of your draft. Okay, after you pick #1, they're going for it
they
now.
don't even
They
have a
really,
number one pick,
oh, they don't write the Trey Lance deal. Right. So they're
right?
tapped out. But by
Right.
giving away a 2 or 3 and a 4, on a player with an injury history, McCaffrey, who's an outstanding player, but a big time injury history. They're going for it now, much as the Rams did. The Matthew Stafford deal, other deals. The Rams have always been willing to trade the draft choices, and they went for it one year and they won it. And it's made it worth it for the Rams. Okay, they're in the downtime now, but it doesn't matter. Once you win that Super Bowl, even if the next few years are so, you've gotten to the mountaintop. I mean, enjoy it. I mean, I don't like fans' attitude. I hate fans' attitude. No offense, Pags. You win a championship, even if the team is terrible the next couple of years, relax. Just enjoy the darn championship. get your popcorn, your beer, your soda, your peanuts when you go to the ball game. Enjoy the game and gloat. Well, we won a championship 3 years ago. We're cool. I admit when it gets to a decade already, maybe you start becoming uptight, and maybe 8 years or so. But the first few years, just enjoy the darn thing. If the Phillies win the World Series this year, and I could just see the fans getting restless if they're off to a 19-31 start next year and start booing the guys. But listen, Yankee fans booed Aaron Judge in the playoffs. They don't realize that could be a deal breaker with Judge. If Judge isn't sure he wants to go elsewhere, before he might think, I don't want to disappoint these fans. They've been so good to me. I feel a sense of obligation. As long as the Yankees are somewhat close to another team, I'll take a little less money to just go elsewhere. I didn't say a lot less money. I said a little less money, But now he might be thinking, what the heck? The fans will turn on me again, if I'm not doing, that great at a certain point. I sometimes the fans could sometimes be difference makers. You take Jose Ramirez, the third baseman of the Indians. He signed for less money, came up as a kid in the Indian organization. He loves Cleveland. That's all he's ever known. That's where he lives. That's where his daughter goes to school. And he took less money, said, look, how much money do I need? He's getting paid well over $20 million a year, but he could have gotten about 7, 8, 9 million more per year on a contract elsewhere. And that's significant, but he wanted to stay with Cleveland. But I don't know how we got into free agency, but believe me, that's the great thing, especially about baseball, free agent numbers. Because when the World Series ends, everyone's going to take a little break from baseball. We're going to look at football, continue to look at football, pay a little more attention to the NBA because we've been more into the season, hockey, other sports, other guys like you, soccer, whatever, And then we're going to start looking at the baseball free agency period where all the dominoes are going to fall, because there are guys outside of Judge who are going to become free agents. And I know in Philadelphia, Philly's going to make a strong push at someone. You know what would be ironic, Pax? If, I just got a feeling the guy they might make a strong push at could be Justin Verlander, who's going to be a free agent. The Phillies might say, with all the talk about teams targeting Judge and DeGrom, let's go big time after Verlander. Let's offer him a big 3-year deal. Let's, I'll offer him a 4-year deal. $40 million for 4 years, 160.
No. He's going to be 40. He would be 44 when that ended.
He's a Cy Young Award winner.
Yeah, I don't care.
He's a
I can't do that. I can't do that. I would give $40 million for 4 years for DeGrom before I would.
Signs are slowing down.
Yeah, except for the fact that he can't win a playoff game. So it's
Don't jinx yourself.
So I'm not jinxing myself. I don't know that I would spend that type of money on him. I can't imagine at 39 years old that you want to have somebody tied up like that, because ultimately it's going to wind up costing you money towards the end. Real quick, let's take our break right now, and we'll be back because we still have a lot more to talk about. Talking about baseball and Philly stuff, but we've got basketball that's happening. We've got some other things that have occurred, the trade deadline and such like that in the NFL that has occurred. Kyrie Irving's in the news. Really just the New York Nets or the Brooklyn Nets are in the news. How do you, we'll talk about how you like Ben Simmons. How do you like him so far? But we'll be back right after these messages, and we can get to all that plus some more Phillies and Philadelphia and Houston talk right after this messages.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Supporting the needs of our veterans. That's the goal of all of us at Team AmVets. Like Mitch, Carlos, and Kevin from our Welcome Home team that brings furniture to our vets.
We are Team AmVets.
Or Linda from our thrift stores who brings you great bargains every day.
I am Team AmVets.
And John, who picks up your thrift store donations that support California veterans programs.
I am Team AmVets.
Visit our website or a Team AmVets thrift store to donate or shop today.
Join the team!
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this
Oh,
team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get us any.
And we are back to the Mac and Jack show with co-host, the Philly sports guy, which is me, of course. So let's bypass. I know we've talked about Philadelphia a lot. Philadelphia's sports is in the national media.
There hasn't been any Yankee talk, Pag, so I think you have to go.
You know what? I'm very excited about the fact that I don't have to talk about the Yankees because I know more about the Yankees than I really care to, and because of that, I'm excited that if this was a Philadelphia Yankees, the Philadelphia New York World Series, I can only imagine what would be going on. I would have relished that. I think that we would have really Yankees with the way now. So I think that this is by far a much more competitive series than a Phillies Yankees World Series would have been. Although it would have been payback to the Yankees for 2009. That being said, I mean, I don't think that the Yankees are as far away as people put them out to be. I think that it's possible that they could be back there in the mix next year, and that we could see a rebirth of the Philadelphia New York rivalry.
All the teams, Pags, a number of teams, I should say. There's a bit of uncertainty with the free agents out there. Which players are going to leave their team? Who are they going to re-sign? If you can't re-sign your players, do you re-sign someone from another team? For example, the Dodgers, their shortstop, Trey Turner, is going to be a free agent. If he signs elsewhere, do the Dodgers counter and sign, let's say, Carlos Correa? And it's easy to say to sign a guy. You got on me a little while ago when I mentioned, Justin Verlander might be an ideal guy for the Phillies to turn their concentration to as soon as the free agent period begins, because all eyes are going to be on number one. It's going to be on Aaron Judge and then Jacob deGrom. The both of them, I think, are the two big names. But Justin Verlander's on Jacob deGrom's level, basically. I mean, at peak value, Jacob deGrom is slightly ahead, but Justin Verlander pitches more. So that might make him more valuable to a team for all we know. But it's something to think about. How many years do you want to give a guy? How many are you willing to risk on him? And I got nothing at stake as far as the Phillies go. You do. You know, you have all these emotions for the Phillies. I have none for the Phillies, you know, in that sense. So I don't care what goes on at the back end of their contract. But you at least are thinking smartly. You got to think of the whole contract. He might be good for 2 years, but are we going to be, you know, having an awful deal with him the last year or two? I hate the idea when someone says, well, give a guy a 7-year contract, and if you get 4 years out of it, be happy. No, you want 7 good years. That's what you're paying the darn guy for. I don't want to hear about it. See, the Philly contract with Bryce Harper wasn't a bad deal for the Phillies, even though it's for 13 years. And I'm going to explain you why it wasn't a bad deal for the Phillies. Because Bryce Harper, the total money was $330 million. If you gave Bryce Harper a 10-year deal for $33 million a year, it would not have been outrageous. It would have been a little high at the time, but within parameters, even though a little high at the time, but acceptable. And if he said to you, you sign me for this 10-year deal, $33 million a year, I'm going to give you the next 3 years for free. You won't have to pay me $1. And that's what the total amount is. So, you know, it made sense in that way. Like the Yankees, they didn't want to sign DJ LeMayo to a 6-year deal. He was age 32. They were trying to get him for 4 years. Eventually, they gave him to 6 years because the total dollar amount was $90 million. And they were figuring, look, we might be able to live with paying him $20 million a year for 4 years. That's $80 million. And it would only be $5 million a year the next 2 years. So they could kind of bend on that. It'll be interesting how much they'll bend with the Aaron Judge contract situation, which they totally blew in the beginning. Hey, you know, he was very signable 2-3 years ago. He was signable even this offseason because what they're going to offer Aaron Judge, the Yankees now, he would have signed for before the season began. But, you know, and now I think the Yankees are going to wind up losing him because I don't think the Yankees are going to come within range. And are the Phillies going to put a bid on Judge, you think, or just monitor the situation? Might they surprise everyone? And they might figure, wow, everyone thinks we're going for pitching, that we might put a bid on, you know, Jacob deGrom or Verlander. But no, let's go for Aaron Judge. But how many years could they give him? I mean, and at what dollar amount? That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know that Judge is the type of priority. You know, I look at Judge as somebody who's going to be a designated hitter here in the next couple of years. Now, he plays what, left field?
He's an outstanding right field and center, but he's an outstanding fielder. He's outstanding.
Right,
but
I'm looking at but just looking at that alone, you have Bryce Harper in right field. You got Castellanos, who's had to play there all season. You've got our center fielder of the future for at least the immediate future right now in Marsh. I think that they got him specifically to be able to solidify that area. Now, could you put Schwarber to the designated hitter and move Castellanos over to left? And, you know, and then, you know, now you're running into the problem with where Bryce Harper is going to go. Do you try to get him to maybe go to the first base and you Rhys Hoskins? It becomes too much of a log jam out there in the outfield is what I see. And that's why I don't think that Aaron Judge fits what right now the Phillies would be going. That's to answer your question. I'm looking at all of that, and Aaron Judge is just not a fit in this team.
But Pax, I think the nature of baseball has changed in regard to the DH. I don't think teams want a full-time DH like you have a David Ortiz. Unless he's a phenomenal hitter, he just ties things up. He gives you less flexibility. Even the Yankees, Giancarlo Stanton, he was a DH for a long time for the Yankees. They were scared about his injury history. Finally, they had to start playing him in the field because you needed flexibility. And there's Schwarber, and I don't know how many years Schwarber has left with the Phillies. on his deal for. But Schwarber and as Bryce Harper gets older, you're going to want them DHing a bit, but you're not going to want them completely tying the DH position up. You're going to want them to.
We were stuck with that this year, though. We were stuck with that where Bryce Harper getting hurt, and not being able to throw the ball makes a big difference. Now he's stuck being the DH. That, when he was hurt, we were able to have a little bit more flexibility in terms of being able to put out. So once we got Marsh, you were able to have Vierling, Marsh, and Schwarber out there and either have Castellanos and have Castellanos out in right field and switch off with a designated hitter or give Castellanos a day off because he needed a couple or when he got hurt. But when Harper was in the lineup, Harper can only DH and still has only been able to DH. I expect next year he's going to be back out in right field again. And that's going to give you that flexibility where you could give somebody a spell off where you doesn't have to play the field, but is able to DH. And I don't think that you're able to do that right now with the way that this season occurred because Bryce Harper's been hurt all season long. Again, understanding, you look at Houston. Their DH is non-existent. I think that they've gotten a whole, one out of the series so far?
No. The point is, I don't like the idea of locking a play in the DH position. I think that should be a rotating thing, alternate thing. I would never want to pick up a player just who's going to primarily be a DH. Unless it was a David Ortiz. If a David Ortiz in his prime became available, you could kind of maybe do it. And even then I would be hesitant, believe it or not, because now you're log jamming your lineup. But yeah, it's basically what it is. I think we were going to talk a little about the NBA. And I'm going to tell you, Pags, I'm not as fanatical a fan as you are. Okay, I'm just not. I'm a big Yankee fan. I'm a big Jet fan. To a lesser degree, I was a Brooklyn Net fan. Notice I say was, okay? I've been a Net fan from when they won the ABA. Before you had Dr. J, I had Dr. J. He was mine on the New York Nets, okay? The New York Nets winning a couple of ABA championships. So I had Dr. J on my team when he was in his prime in the ABA. I think he may have been a better player in the ABA than he was in the NBA. How do you like that? Okay, in the ABA, he was the Michael Jordan of the ABA. In the NBA, what was left was substantial. He was still a great player, Hall of Famer in the NBA, but something about the ABA, I think that was his prime years, kind of like Muhammad Ali, the first coming and the second coming. I think he was the first coming of Ali when he was in the ABA, and then the Ali who beat Foreman and had the Thriller in Manila with Frazier. That was after the 3-year layoff. That was the second coming, still great, but that was the NBA's version of Julius Erving. But the Brooklyn Nets, they're playing the Chicago Bulls the other night. I'm rooting for the Bulls. Not only am I indifferent, the Nets have this lead going into the fourth period, and I'm rooting the Bulls on. I couldn't give a darn about the Chicago Bulls, but I'm rooting for them, and I'm happy because I'm sick of the Brooklyn Nets. How can they bring me any happiness? They're nothing but a symbol. You look at the guys there, and, their biggest star is Kevin Durant, and I don't want to make this about him because I believe Kevin Durant is a good person. Overly sensitive, yes, way overly sensitive, and I'm disappointed. He's never become a leader. He's always become a follower. And when someone is that great of a player, you take the bull by the horns and be a leader. You want to demand being the leader. You want to make this your team, have the guys rally around you. But yet this has become a dysfunctional group. It's become a team with Kyrie Irving. Steve Nash, the Brooklyn Net coach, he just resigned. And interesting question, Pax. Was he fired or whether he resigned? I think the words are relevant. I don't think it matters. I think Steve Nash may have been able to stay longer had he wanted to, but no one was trying to talk him into staying, it seemed. Let's put it that way, okay? It was Steve Nash. You know, sometimes you sit down and talk with someone and you say, you know, maybe I'm not the best guy for this. And they're not trying to talk you out of it. You know, they're kind of like agreeing with you. And then you say, I think I better leave. And they say, okay, that's resigning or being fired or what, you know? And let's face it, a lot of it falls on Steve Nash. I don't want to hear that Steve Nash is this victim and so on. Steve Nash made the biggest mistake that coaches and organizations have done. They're giving the players all the power, all the say. It's no longer, in most cases, a coach organization decision. It's what the players want. It's like they're scared of the players. They're scared to intimidate the players. One of the reasons Nash reportedly got the job was because Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving signed off on it. So they were okay with Nash getting the job, no problem. He was their guy because they figured Nash is easygoing and they can do basically things as they want. That doesn't mean they're taking shortcuts or loafing, but it's not the same culture. Like when LeBron James was on the Miami Heat, the report was he was extremely unhappy with Eric Spoelstra and tried to, push for change. And reportedly, and no one's denounced this, Pat Riley said to him reportedly, he's going to be here longer than you are, letting him know he's backing his coach up. Why don't you just tell these guys, you're on the contract. If you don't like it, you could retire, not show up for the game. We'll suspend you for 10 games. Go to the players' union. Okay, let the players' union win their case. We'll give you your money then. Let the coach know. Don't put up with anything. A player talks back to you, seat them on the bench. Seat them on the bench. Don't put up with any nonsense at all. And let's see whether the player's going to come around or not. If he's not, certain players have too much pride in their game. They're going to come around. And Kevin Durant's got tremendous pride in his game. He's not going to loaf on the court. But this isn't about Kevin Durant, directly at all. But you'd hope Kevin Durant at some point, would maybe be a leader. It's about the net organization. And it's about a really pathetic general manager too in Sean Marks. I mean, I have to have accountability there. Now they're hiring Ime Udoka, the controversial coach from the Boston Celtics, who the Celtics have on suspension because of conduct issues. Listen, I believe in second chances, okay, in most cases, and I'm not against this. As long as things didn't go on behind the scenes that was so incredibly outrageous that he shouldn't come back. I believe in other chances. I really do. Udoka has a history with some of the guys. He was a past assistant coach with the Nets. He has a history with Ben Simmons when he was at Philadelphia. So maybe he could help Ben Simmons out. If anyone could help him out and salvage him, it certainly wasn't going to be Steve Nash. And I'm not saying Udoka is going to do it, but if he could stabilize Ben Simmons, make him into a good player, not a great player, not a star, but a good NBA player, we're going to see. But it's the Kyrie Irving drama. It's never going to stop with Kyrie. I was wrong this year. I stand to be corrected. I said this is Kyrie's contract year. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. Kyrie's going to be on his best behavior all season long because he wants that big deal that he either from the Nets or someone else. Guess what? Kyrie couldn't do it. Kyrie posts these controversial, he tweets these controversial stuff in this book that's anti-Semitic. And the point about it, okay, people make mistakes. As soon as it's out, it's brought to your attention. Pull it back, apologize. I didn't realize, guys. I feel terrible how hurtful this was to people. That's what makes me feel bad. I apologize, move on. Kyrie's doubling down on this. He's doubling down. But what net ownership initially, the net owner, he comes out with a statement condemning it. The organization comes out with a statement condemning it. Notice no suspension. No this, no that. Notice the NBA is quiet. They're quiet. They're scared of the stars. The NBA is scared of the Kyrie Irvings. They're scared of the LeBron Jameses. But they'll take action maybe again, maybe if it's a marginal player, yeah, they'll take action against those type players. If a coach says something, they'll take action against someone like that. If it's a broadcaster who said something like that, the broadcaster is going to get fired from his position. But it's Kyrie Irving. I mean, we've had enough Kyrie adventure, but this is really hurtful. Kudos to the members of the media. Kudos to the members of the media watching the shows like ESPN, First Take, Sports Center. They all got savagely on Kyrie about this. They gave him no slack. So kudos to our colleagues for recognizing this with Kyrie. But what gets me with the net organization, this is what bothers the heck out of me. Kyrie initially is supposed to answer questions at a press conference. He refuses to do it. He gets into it with a reporter. Next question. I don't have to answer this. Next question. And the reporter wants a basic answer. Kyrie doesn't want to answer. All he says, I don't hate anyone. I don't discriminate against any groups. Even though by him sending out what he sent out, that is showing a support of, in terms of hatred in that sense. And he's upset, and he upset a great amount of people doing that, okay? And Kyrie refuses to back off his stance, and the Nets don't make him available.
So here's, and trust me, I'm not defending Kyrie Irving by making this statement, but who cares what he says? I mean, realistically, nothing that he eats makes me crap. And I'm telling you, and that's kind of what I think. The fact that people are making a story about this is, first off, he is known for this his entire career. He's been something that tries to get him in the limelight. So now he's getting the limelight on him again. And he's eating it up. He's eating it up. That his name is being mentioned on all the sports centers and all this stuff. People are buying the book because because of what's going on with this. He's loving
it. Based on hatred.
And you know what? Bestseller because of all of the hoopla that's come around with this. He is an idiot. He is an idiot. And I don't care about anything that he says because nothing of what he says I don't hold it in any of my values. I don't hear it. It's just ridiculous. The whole situation is ridiculous to me about that. And the fact that the media is pushing it more and they're expecting other people to do something about it, we have to denounce this because it's because or we have to stand back or keep it at arm's distance because it's a player and we don't want to get involved with the Players Association. Truth of the matter is that the players run the asylum in the NBA, and it's like I said. Okay, you got anti-Semitic remarks. You don't want to retract them because you can't say you're sorry. Well, then whatever. You know what I mean? Then we don't need to put your name out there anymore because I tell you what, if they stop talking about it and they stop putting his name out there as much, I bet you he would start talking about it more. He'd try to force the issue, excuse me, and try to push himself back into that limelight. And the fact that this is even occurring is ridiculous to me. I think that whatever, it's like, I don't care what you think. You're an idiot. And if it wasn't for the fact that you could play basketball, you would not be known at all. Excuse me. So, and that's just how I feel about it. That's just how I feel about it.
But
It does
Tags,
not matter.
Tags, you have a fan base, okay? You have a fan base, okay? And let's say you had Larry Birds make these remarks. I'm hypothetically, let's make believe when he was playing that was supporting the Ku Klux Klan, and he sent things out. He tweeted things out, about the Ku Klux Klan, blah, 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 the whole time. And he refused to apologize about it. And Larry Bird said, I don't hate any one particular group. He hurts a certain amount of the fan base. The black fans.
And you know how how to stop that? You know how that should affect the fan base? Don't buy the tickets.
But that's what, okay. But yours truly doesn't give a darn about the Nets anymore. He doesn't give a darn. They lost me as a fan. So in reality, if someone is hurting business by bigotry, you should be doing anything about. They're hurting the league's image with that. And the double standard being set. There's some things you just don't do unless we're going to not have a double standard here at all, in the sense that let anyone say whatever the heck they want. No conduct clauses in sports altogether. Then the Deshaun Watson case, who cares? Let him play. Let any player say whatever he wants about anyone. Let any owner say whatever he wants about anyone. Let everyone say whatever they want about anyone, and let the police handle it, Pax. If it's a crime, report it to the police. They handle it. We don't give a darn as a team in the league. Let anyone just say anything about anyone. I mean, I'm not good with that. Are you?
It doesn't move my needle as much as it does for you. That's the. Listen, a lot of people who said a lot of things that I don't agree with, and the truth of the matter is that the one thing that I could say about myself, being a military guy and the kneeling of for the anthem, that like this kind of falls a little bit into that same category. We're in the same ballpark here. It never moved me, and hey, listen, I understand why everybody was moved by it. So, and I served the country. I was in the Navy, so trust me, I understand. That being said, you know what? If you want to kneel, go kneel. You know what I mean? I fought for this country because I wanted to. It was a sense of pride for me. I didn't do it for anybody else. I believed in what it is that I was going to do, and I went and did it. And I have the utmost respect to everybody who serves this country for, whether you're a police officer, you're a first responder, whether you're in the military itself. Those are difficult jobs, and those are sacrificial jobs that you have to do, and you get that. But if you want to go kneel, at the national anthem, and you're trying to make a statement, well, the truth of the matter is I ain't listening to your statement in the first place, because I don't believe that way. And if you want to kneel, go ahead. I'm just not going to pay you any mind, because you ain't saying anything I want to hear in the first place.
But I expect sometimes it depends on the consistency. Take LeBron James, for example. This is a guy who said a few days ago that he's no longer a Dallas Cowboy fan because of the rule that the Cowboys set that players can't kneel. They have to stand for the anthem. So he's no longer a Cowboy fan. This is the same LeBron James who not long ago said, why would Brittany Griner want to come back to this country the way they're treating her, not trying to get a release? Does this idiot LeBron understand the United States is indirectly at war with Russia? Putin is holding us as a bargaining chip. They have no leverage with Russia, the United States, none at all to get her back.
Of course. And let's be for real. If Putin was to call LeBron direct, which I'm sure he could, and say, hey, listen, you could have her back. All you got to do is just give me $150 million. Do you think LeBron's?
That wouldn't be enough. No, Putin will want more than that. She's
all right, but I'm just throwing it. All right, $250 million, and you could have her back. Do you think LeBron's going into his pocket? It's perfect for him to be able to say whatever he wants to because it doesn't cost him
This
money.
is the same LeBron James who posted a picture of an officer who was responding to a call from of a girl about to get killed, about to get the knife plunged in her. So he had no choice but to shoot the other girl who wouldn't stop, who was about to kill someone else. He had to shoot her. He posts the officer's picture threatening him that he's next. And then he explains after, well, it wasn't the officer in particular. He posted his picture. So this is the LeBron James who's involved with all these social issues. But notice with the Kyrie Irving thing, there's silence. I want to hear a statement. I'm taking it as if LeBron is condoning what Kyrie did by his silence. That's how I'm taking it until LeBron says otherwise. I mean, I hope that's not the case. But, come on, LeBron. Let's hear from you now, LeBron. Maybe he's thinking he wants Kyrie as his teammate with the Lakers, so he's chilling out, not to annoy Kyrie. But let's hear LeBron just say, look, Kyrie, he doesn't have to attack Kyrie. Just mention, I think Kyrie made a mistake, should say he's sorry, and then we should move on. I'd be okay with that.
Nope, he'll never do that because, I mean, like I said, I feel that he's been very apparent about how he feels about certain things of that nature. And he's been very, very apparent about the fact that he is, I'm not saying that he is like a full-fledged racist, but he has been very apparent about the way he feels about certain races.
I don't think,
and I think that goes to thing. He's not saying anything because he feels this very specific way, and there's a piece of that he kind of feels is right. And you know what? And he's like, that's my boy. I'm going to go ahead and stand by him because, listen, again, it ain't costing him any money, and it makes him, in the eyes of the community, in the community that he is trying to remain a big part of. If he came out and said something specific, there would be, and I'm not even saying it would be a big backlash in any way, shape, or form, but there would be a ripple of backlash. And even as smallest of a ripple is going to register on his radar. And that's a real thing. I don't think like I said, he doesn't care what I think, and I don't care what he thinks. Just like I don't care what Kyrie thinks, because I hold myself accountable for my moral standing, just like they need to account for them. Now, the media is making a big deal about it, is all they're doing is selling books for Kyrie Irving. That's all they are doing. If they didn't talk about it at all, I bet you he'd be forcing the issue. Well, he would make a bigger deal about it. The fact that you, like I said, just you in general, you've stopped becoming a Nets fan. You have let it completely affect your life, where you've been a Nets fan all of this time, but now you're not.
It's not this one thing in itself. I wouldn't stop becoming a Nets fan. And you want to know something? I'm going to say something that is actually going to defend Kyrie a little bit here. I didn't like what happened the other night at the Net-Pacer game. They sat down some Orthodox Jews in front of that Pacer bench that said, "Stop anti-Semitism," with shirts, a whole bunch of them in plain view for everyone to see right in front of Kyrie. Wow. I wonder how those young people got those tickets. It was a big Kyrie. Who did that? That shouldn't have been done. Let's go after Kyrie on the statements. I'm not here to destroy Kyrie. I'm not here to embarrass Kyrie that way. I really don't want to embarrass him that way. I mean, there are two differences. You're entitled to feel a certain way, but feeling and acting certain ways don't always go hand in hand. I could think another person is a complete idiot, but when I see them, you try to be civil. You give them a nod, hello, as you go by. You don't turn your head away, even though you think they're a complete fool, unless they did something to you, in particular, individually. And but with Kyrie, it's too much drama already, even in the lead up to this. Like
Again,
enough.
again, this is where I feel that everybody looks in the mirror and does what they want to do. And that's the most important thing here as you move forward. And I'm not comparing myself to Kyrie in any way, shape, or form. I take about right now, literally 1,000 to 2,500 pictures a day right now. And
Wow.
I don't ever discriminate between any person, old, black, white, Asian, Indian, little kids, very old, handicapped. It doesn't matter. I accept everybody and take a picture with everybody. Now you could say that's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. Truth of the matter is that even in your job and in a lot of places in the world, people would not do the same thing. They would dismiss somebody because I don't want to take a picture with you guys, so I'm going to go over here. Somebody wants to take a picture with me who stinks to high heaven. I sit there and I smile. And because they don't know how to bathe, I don't know what's going on in their life. It's not for me to say, but I take that picture and I smile, and I go to the next one and I smile, and I go to the next one and I smile, and it doesn't matter, and especially in Philadelphia, and I'm gonna. There has been Sesame Place, which has been in existence for a long time. They became newsworthy, I want to say a good 6 to 9 months ago, because the characters were not taking pictures with African American children. Yeah, that they were, and it was ridiculous.
Wow! I didn't know
Ridiculous.
that.
And it became a news story, because it was not just one time. It was like a series of times that were filmed where, how is it that you're not going to say hello to the little kid? You're teaching that child, racism. And by doing that, I will never be a part of that, ever. Ever. I'm going to accept everybody, and it doesn't matter your status. That's why I never put myself, when people ask me to say that I'm the number one fan, I'm not the number one fan. I'm a fan like everybody else. I may be better at putting on makeup. That's what it is. I may be better at expressing myself when it comes to the passion, but that's it. I'm not any different of a fan than anybody else. And when somebody's like yelling or cursing and stuff, I'm like, yo, there's kids around. Well, now they listen to me because I got my face painted. And you know what? Listen, when you paint your face for a living, you better get the joke. You better understand what it is that you're doing. And I understand, but I also understand that I have a very big outreach right now, and I am looked at all of the time. And you better believe that I'm going to promote my values by doing it, not by, oh, well, I'm not going to hide behind anything that I do. And the reason why I don't ever have to apologize is because I mean to do everything that I do. And it falls into that, my moral being and my moral standing. When you have people of questionable moral standings, but are making a lot of money doing something that they're playing a kid's game. They are playing a kid's game, making millions of dollars. They feel they become entitled. They become entitled. And that's what of entitlement. This is the only reason why he's getting any play is because everybody wants him to apologize. And if he came out and apologized, I wouldn't believe it anyways, because he doesn't apologize. The reason why you don't apologize is because you mean to do it. And I'm the same way. If I hurt somebody's feelings, it's hard for me to apologize because I didn't really take into consideration their feelings when I did it. I mean to do everything that I do. Sometimes your feelings get hurt in the process of that. And I'm sorry that your feelings were hurt in that. But that I'm not apologizing for what I did because I meant to do it. And that's the same way here. If he was to apologize, I wouldn't believe it anyways.
Oh, no, I wouldn't want an apology unless it's sincere.
Right. But that's exactly it. It's not going to be sincere because anything that he does, he means to do.
Yeah, but with Kyrie Irving, I guess it's a lead up. Nothing should surprise us with Kyrie Irving, his whole history. And I'll tell you, it says a lot about the influence of LeBron James that when Kyrie Irving was with the Cavaliers, LeBron kept him in check. As soon as he escaped LeBron, things started getting out of control. When LeBron left to go to Miami, the Cavalier team fell apart. They were awful with Kyrie. They're terrible. Then he goes to Boston. It was 2 years of failure, basically. He promised the Celtic fans he was going nowhere. He was going to re-sign with them. And of course, he went to the Nets. It's been a disaster. But he is a great talent. He is a great player on the court. So, some team out there wants him playing. They realize what he can do. But I'm going to tell you, it can't be with the Nets. Nets are a train wreck. And what gets me with the Nets, they didn't have to make all these moves. I mean, getting Irving and Durant, I was good with. I'll be honest about it. Even though we didn't realize how far gone Kyrie really was till he was with the Nets here. And say what you want about Durant. He's been an asset to the Nets since he's gotten to them. He's been an outstanding player. The James Harden deal, your guy, I didn't like when the Nets made the deal because they gave up a centerpiece play in that deal, Jared Allen, who went in a three-way deal to the Cavaliers. Jared Allen, I knew how good he was going to be. Right now, if I'm the Cavaliers, if the salaries were even and the Sixers called me up and they offered me Harden for Jared Allen, I'd say no, thank you, and move on. And you think Caris LeVert, other pieces, Spencer Dinwiddie, who the Nets had. And as it turns out, they would have been better off with all this drama building their young core. But I also understand, this is Brooklyn, the Barclays Center. You finally want to get the buzz going. And listen, when the Nets first had Durant, Irving, and Harden, and keep in mind, when Harden went to the Nets, it was James Harden, the superstar coming from Houston, not the James Harden you have now, who's a good, solid player, but no longer the James Harden, the superstar. It looked like, how can the Nets now win a championship? And the ironic part about it, even with Durant and Irving playing hard and adding Ben Simmons, what's their ceiling? Are they good enough to even make the playoffs as a team? All of a sudden, their bench isn't that good anymore. And Ben Simmons, is he the quiet guy in all this? Ben Simmons has went to the Nets, and he's put forth an effort. He's taken the court, which is good. You got him back in action. The Ben Simmons I saw first come up to the Sixers, you observed him night in, night out. I thought he had star quality. Is that gone forever? What's Ben Simmons' ceiling moving forward from someone who knows him from Philadelphia? Is he going to? What's the most the team can hope out of Ben Simmons if he has a good attitude? Let's assume he will, and he's going to try.
So I look at this. I look at this as, all right. So we're talking about his ceiling. Well, now it's a drop ceiling because you're trying to hide everything, all of the mess, and maybe it is the mental thing. Maybe it was all mental. That was why he couldn't play here. That's why he can't play anymore. That it's all mental, that he just doesn't have the mental makeup to be able to compete at a level that, everybody expects him to. And I think that goes all the way back to when he played for LSU. I think it probably goes back to when he was playing over in Australia. I think that it's at one point, if you're going to figure out the timeline of when this all started to go awry, I mean, you could just go back and say probably it had to do with the fact that he had that silver spoon in his mouth the entire time. And ultimately, he expected it to give him everything. And he's expectant rather than for real. And that's the problem. That's what you're running into. You're running into the fact that he was happier to get what basketball can give him, but not really give back to basketball. All more for me, and never anybody else. That's why the team doesn't have a team. That's why they're not a team. And that's why he's not playing well now, because he just does not have the drive. I can go out there and I can make a couple of shots and I can do a couple of things. And this is what I'm good at. And I'm not good at anything else. And you have to accept me because, it's like, I don't know. I just find it very ridiculous. I just find it ridiculous. If you said the same thing to Kobe Bryant, I didn't really care for Kobe Bryant in the way that he did Philadelphia kind of wrong, although he did keep some of the roots here, like in terms of being a fan of like the Eagles and stuff like that. When he went to the Lakers, he really tried to, push away his Philadelphia back, bringing, and then it wasn't until he started to retire that he started to re-grasp some of that. And I can understand that. That maybe has to do more with.
He was an LA guy. Once he went to LA, Kobe was an LA guy.
Well, that's exactly it. But you got to remember where you came from.
You
got to remember where you came
from. Became an LA guy, was from Michigan. He cherishes Michigan and all, but you're becoming, if you're playing for that franchise the whole time, a glamour franchise, that's what you become.
Well, and that part I understand, but he put in, and I was just saying just how I felt about it, but he put in the work every day, and I was just listening to an interview that somebody played a clip of him that's saying, hey, listen, I want guys that want to be around here and want to be in the gym. I want a little bit of a gym rat. If you don't want to be here, now you're part of the problem. You're obviously not part of the solution, and I want solutions. I don't want to be the only person here all the time. I'm going to be the first one here, but I want people right behind me all the time. And I want to make sure that I have people around me that are going to help us all succeed. I want to make sure everybody's on my page, because if we're on my page, we're going to win championships. And he was right a lot of the time. And that's what you got. And then when you have somebody who's like, he wants to be his own person, I am a loud enough voice where I can have other people follow me, and it doesn't matter what we do, because then that's what you're having with the Nets. You have Kyrie Irving, who is a very loud voice, and that sometimes when there's no leadership, the loudest one's the leader. And that's the problem. You have the loudest one being the leader, and he's not really a leader. And all he's doing is being a cancer.
Well, let's see. The Nets going to turn a small corner. Ime Udoka had a lot of success with the Celtics last year, especially coaching, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, two big-time players. We're going to see. But I'm going to tell you, there's such parity in the NBA. And you look at the Sixers. This year is extremely crucial for them, because if they're just a middle-of-the-pack team, it's going to be time to rebuild. I don't know how long Joel Embiid's going to be content. Okay, some guys could last it out with the team their whole career, but once Joel Embiid asks for a trade, wow, you're not going to be able to ever reel him back. So the whole thing is prevent him from getting there. They got him James Harden. And I'm going to tell you, I think James Harden, I don't want to say is gassed, but I think he's no more than a good player, not worth the big money. He's not the solution. Maxi's coming along wonderfully. I don't want to use the word rebuild, but they're going to have to find a way to reboot. And in the NBA, that's hard to do.
I somewhat agree. I think Harden's been playing pretty well up to this point, although I haven't watched many basketball games. People have asked me, well, the Sixers aren't very good right now, and I keep saying
now they're like, it's early still, but Harden started really well the first couple of games, and now he's kind of leveling. And with Embiid out, they've lost 3 in a row. You would want to see Harden carry the team, like a star. Win 2 or 3 of the games with Embiid out. Hold the fort for him.
Well, I hear you, and my thought is that, and I'm going to play selfish, because it seems like everybody else that I've been to was one. I haven't been to a Sixers game yet, and maybe that's why they're losing. They haven't gotten the energy that needs to be there to make everybody else, that's brought winning to everybody else. And I
winning before, because we have only a little time left.
Right.
John Tortorella. Flyer coach, their new culture with the Flyers? Because you were disgusted with their culture.
I can. Hey, that this shows good results up to this point. I need more. I need more of a sample size. I'm not. Hey, 10 games is great. We did great last year too, and then we started to stink. Or I think we did great up to the first 20 games, and then we started to stink. It's I need more time. I want to see what happens with this team.
And tonight's game prediction, of course, I'm picking the Eagles. I think they win handily. I think they win by 25 points. How's that, 36-11? Does that sound good?
I don't think it's that close. I don't think it's that close. I think that it's or that far away. I think it's a closer game because it is a Thursday night football. The one thing about Houston. Yeah, I think that the Eagles win this game. I think that they do cover at the 14 points, but I think it's like 24, 3 or 24-6. It's not going to be. It might even be 24-0. I don't think that Houston's offense is good enough. However, it is Thursday night, so it makes things a little different. Thursday night scores are always high, so it could be really crazy. But I think that the Eagles win this handily. But I also think that it's closer than it appears to be. You know what I mean? I think that we may be only going into the half up by 3 points or 7 points. And then we get some points in the second half and take it over at that point.
If I made the statement, the Eagles have a top 5 defense in the NFL, are you comfortable with that statement?
Yeah.
If I say the Eagles have a top 5 offense, would you rather me stretch it to top 10?
Nope. I think we are a top 5.
So that means
I think everything's kicking on all cylinders right now, and it reminds me a little bit of that Patriot team as they were going through the season of their undefeated regular season where they lost to the Giants. They started off okay, and then they started to really beat teams. We got to continue to do it. You got to remain focused. And that, like I said, the Eagles are going to win every game that they remain focused for. If they don't remain focused, they're going to lose. And that's what happens.
Expectations have been raised. If the Eagles go to the NFC Championship game and get eliminated in the NFC Championship game, it's going to be a bitter disappointment. Unlike early in the year, if you were told they get there, it would be considered a good year.
I thought they would always get there. And I've said it from the very beginning that I thought they were good enough to get to the NFC Championship game. I couldn't see beyond that. I still am there right now. Obviously, we're only 7 games in for the Eagles. So let's get past game number 8. Let's get to 8-0, and then let's see where we're at. I can only speak for what the team is going to do. And as long as they remain focused, I can't see them losing. And that's all I can really say about that. Mm-hmm. And that being said, our 2 hours is up. Wow, this was a quick 2 hours today. I know we talked a lot about Philly, which probably really upsets you since New York wasn't really on the mind of everybody this weekend.
Well, we'll get around to Keith Hernandez next time.
I'm sure. But in the meantime, everybody, thank you for hanging with us today. And Mac will be back tomorrow. I may or may not be. I know that I've been getting asked to do a lot of interviews lately, so I may not be back here tomorrow. But you will definitely see me real soon. Everybody, have a great week, and let's go Phillies. Yeah.